Okay, friends, I am Dr. Hinawani, and today in the Olympiad session for Maths Grade 7, we are taking the topic naming simple and compounded interest. Okay, so what is mean by simple interest? What is mean by compounded interest? So see, if we are keeping our money in the bank, okay, bank gives us some yearly charges on that money while we keep our money safe into the bank, and bank is using that money for their inflation, you can say, or daily day financial programs. But this money, when we keep in the bank or in any other some uh, safe institutes or places, they pay us the interest on that. Or if we take a loan from the bank, we have to pay some amount which is known as interest. Okay, so this interest is charged on 1 second. 1 second, something is ringing. Don't understand what is it. Wait a minute. Where we are? So that interest or that money, extra money, can be paid as yearly or half yearly or quarterly on the principal amount which we deposit in the bank or we lend from the bank. Okay, so this is the theme of interest. Okay, now this interest can be of two types: simple interest or compounded interest. So what is mean by simple interest? So some yearly rate is there. By that rate we have to pay that money if we take a loan from the bank, and that rate is applied on the principal which we borrow from the bank. Okay, now this principal remains the same every year. For how many years we had uh, borrow that money from the bank or we took the loan from the bank, then it is known as simple interest. But if the principal in the principal we add the interest every year and that principal amount get increased every year, rate remains the same. Okay, but principal increased every year, so this is known as compounded interest. Means in Marathi it is called as चक्रवाढ व्याज. Means जो मनी और जो पैसा आप लोग उठाते हो वो पैसा जो है उसका अमाउंट बढ़ते जाता है, and next interest will be applied on that increased amount, is known as compounded interest. So in case of simple interest, we calculate interest paid by borrower over the certain period of time without changing its principal. See, principal इधर नहीं change हो रहा है, but in compounded interest principal get changed. Okay, example given to us that calculate the simple interest on the sum of rupees $1,200 at the rate of 5% per annum for 2 years. Now see, there is a formula to calculate the simple interest. Principal multiplied by rate multiplied by time period for which the rate is applied or interest is applied upon 100. So principal here is 1200, rate is 5%, and time period is 1 year, divided by 100 gives us the $60. Means every year $60 interest should be paid. Okay, so $60 interest they have to pay every year. For second year also the interest rate will be the same, 5%, and it is a simple interest. So $60 again he has to pay on the principal of 1200, because principal remains the same in the simple interest. So together after 2 years how much money they pay extra? 120 rupees they pay extra. Okay, on 1200 rupees. But for compounded interest this principal get increased, so we have to apply the rate on new principal. Means in the first step we calculate the interest as per the simple interest formula, then for second time that principal will increase. Whatever interest amount is paid or we have to pay, that amount get added into the principal. So principal increase, and then that added amount, on that added amount we have to again calculate the interest rate, and both interest rate together gives us the final value which they have to pay. See, find the compounded interest on the sum of $1,500 for 2 years at the rate of 5% per annum compounded annually. Now applied for 2 years. So for the first year we use the formula for simple interest, principal multiplied by rate multiplied by time. We took the time as a 1 year and divided by 100. So $75 interest they have to pay for first year. Now after first year the principal amount increase, 1500 plus 75, it become 1575 rupees. Now for the next 1 year at the rate of 5% interest will be applied on this amount. So principal become 1575, and now the new interest we have to pay is 78.75 rupees. So amount after first year becomes, or amount after second year become 1653, principal is that much. So together total interest for 2 years is 153.75 rupees, or you can simply add these both interest so that you get the value as 153.75 rupees. Now from this is the lengthy method, so we can use the formula to calculate the amount. So to calculate the amount the formula is principal into the bracket multiplied with 1 plus rate of interest upon 100, charge for how many year is the power of that bracket, gives us the amount after certain time period, and after subtracting principal from that amount we get compounded interest. Okay, because amount is increased at the end of 2 years or 3 years, and that amount if we subtract the principal from that amount we get the compound interest. So this is the simple formula to calculate the compound interest. In special cases when interest rate is calculated half yearly, we have to divide the rate also r upon 2 and the power become 2t. If it is charged quarterly, r by 4 and 4t is the power of that bracket. Okay, so this formula you have to keep in mind before we solve the problem. Now see, find the compound interest on rupees 1200 for 3 years at 20% per annum. Now here they had used the lengthy method. For the first year had calculated at the rate of 20% interest rate. They had calculated, which is 120 rupees. No, sorry, 20 rupees. Now this 20 rupees is added to the principal again. Then again for second year they had calculated. Then again they add the amount to the principal, and again for the third year they calculated. And after adding all the things, amount minus principal gives us the compound interest value. But we can directly use the formula to solve the problem. Okay, now some solved problems we will go through, and then we'll solve the practice exercise. Now sum of rupees 1300 lent into 2 years into two parts, so that interest on first part for 3 years at 5% may equal to the interest at second part for 4 years at 6%. Now see, sum we know, which is 1300. But instead of taking 1300, they assume the sum as 100 rupees, because it is easy to calculate on 100 rupees instead of calculating it on 1300. Okay, so they assume the sum as 100 rupees. Now on 100 rupees, it is divided into two parts. But for 100 rupees for 3 years 5% rate, the simple interest amount is 15 rupees. Okay. Now interest on second sum is also the same as that of the first sum. Okay, so interest is 5% only. Sorry, 6% rate is there, but interest amount is same, which is 15 rupees. Okay, so we know the formula of calculating the simple interest: principal multiplied by R multiplied by T upon 100. Now we have to calculate the value for principal. So we know the R, which is 6%. We know the time period, which is 4 years. We got the value of uh, interest amount, which is 15 rupees. We have to calculate the principal. So second sum becomes 15 multiplied by 100 upon 4 by 4 into 6. So it is 125 upon 2. Now the ratio of sum 100 as to 125 they had taken. Now this ratio becomes 8 as to 5. Okay. Now first sum will be 8 parts out of 13 parts. So 8 upon 13 multiplied by 300 gives us the value of first sum, which is 1800. Okay. It is little bit lengthy to understand, but when we use 100 rupees, it is easy to calculate all the things, so that they had used 100 rupees as a first sum, and then they had calculated all the rate of interest regarding to it. The ratio of both the sum we had made, so that if 100 rupees is there and interest is 15 rupees, so if 1300 is there, how much interest will be there? Or if 8 as to 13 is the 8 as to 5 is the ratio of both the sum, means 1300 is divided into 8 parts and 5 parts. So how much is the first sum and how much is the second sum, we can calculate easily. So it is 1800 rupees. Okay. Now the next question. Find a compounded interest on some principal is given for 3 years if the rate of interest is 12 as 2. Okay, so uh, compound interest on rupees 33,280 for 3 years if the rate of interest is this much. Now again the principal is given to us, rate of interest is given to us, time period is given to us. We have to calculate the compound interest. We use that formula for amount. Amount is equal to principal into the bracket 1 plus r upon 100 raised to n. Now here n or t is the time period, which is 3 years. 12 as to 1 by 2 means 25 by 2 is the rate of interest. Now put all the values, and they had calculated the amount first, and after subtracting the principal from amount we got the value of compound interest. Okay, now the next question, or we will directly move to the practice exercise. 1 second. Highlighter maybe get on so that everything gets highlighted here. Okay. Sum of money become 4 times itself at compound interest in 15 years. Okay. In how many years will it become 16 times? Now see what is given. Sum of money become 4 times when keep for 15 years at the rate of something, and compounded interest is applied. Okay, now what is the formula for amount? So amount is equal to p into the bracket 1 plus r upon 100 raised to t. Here t is 15 years. Now this amount become 4 times the principal. Okay, when kept for 15 years it become 4 times itself. Okay, now question is asked when it become 16 times the principal. Now see this equation, p is there on both the side, it will get cancelled, so the equation become 4 is equal to 1 plus r upon 100 raised to 15. This is our equation number 1. Now what is asked, when the principal becomes 16 times, compounded interest is charged and t is asked. Now see again in the second equation, this becomes 16 1 plus r upon 100 raised to t. Now this is our second equation and this is our first equation. Now compare both the equation. Here 4 times it become when time period is 15 years. Here 16 time it becomes and time period is asked. Now this 4 and this 16, after looking it, what you will feel that 4 numbers, if we do the square, we got the value as 16. So we have to make square of this whole bracket. Okay, so a raised to x raised to y, so it become a raised to xy. Means we have to multiply this 15 and 2. So T is equal to 15 multiplied by 2 is equal to 30 years. So when we keep the sum for 30 years, then it becomes 16 times of the principal when compounded interest is applied. So the answer is B, 30 years. Now the next question is, certain sum becomes 7350 in 4 years and 8575 in 5 years. Find the rate of interest per annum. Now see, this is amount. Okay, this sum principal we don't know. Okay, now this amount become 7350 in 4 years and 8575 in 5 years. Okay, now simple interest is applied here. Okay, so sum remains the same. Now how much simple interest is applied? Now 5 and 4, there is a difference of 1 year only. So when we subtract these two things, we get the value of simple interest because it is added in principal every year. Okay, now uh, 8575 minus 7350 gives us the idea of simple interest, which is 1225. Okay, now forget about the sum. Okay, now see, if I had this much amount of money, 7350, and if certain rate is applied, simple interest is calculated as 1225. So what is the rate? You can find the rate because you know the time period, which is 1 year. We got our principal as 7350. We know the simple interest value, which is 1225. So we can find the rate. So to find out the rate, the formula is, we know the formula to calculate the simple interest, which is simple interest is equal to principal multiplied by R multiplied by T upon 100. Now here our principal is 7350. Rate we have to find out, and time period is 1 year. 100 divided by, and how much simple interest we got? 1225 we got. Forget about that certain sum because we know the type of interest is simple interest. Now we assume our principal as 7350. How much interest we got? 1225 interest we got, and rate we have to calculate because rate will not change. So now solve. So R is equal to 1225 multiplied by 100 upon 7350 into 1. Now it gives us the value as 16 as to 2 by 3. You have to divide all the things first with 5 or 25 both the side, then simplify and then you got the value as 16 as to 2 by 3% interest rate. Okay, now the next sum. Find the rate of interest at compound interest in which sum of money become 27 times in 3 years. Now see, find the rate of interest at compound interest in which sum of money become 27 times in 3 years. Now see, amount is equal to principal into the bracket 1 plus R upon 100 raised to T. Now amount become 27 times the principal when time period is 3 years. Okay, now this P will get cancelled. Now 27 is cube of 3. and this is 1 upon r raised to 100 bracket cube. Now we took the cube root of all the things, so it becomes 3 is equal to 1 plus r upon 100. So it becomes 300 is equal to 100 plus r. We multiply both the side with 100. Now it becomes r is equal to 200%. 300 minus 200 gives us the value as 200%. Okay. What is given? Principal become 27 times when compounded interest at certain rate is charged for 3 years. Now we just replace A with 27p. 27 is nothing but the cube of 3. So both the side there is cube. So we took the cube root of it. Now we multiply left hand side and right hand side with 100. So 3 multiplied by 100 is 300. 1 multiplied by 100 is 100. And this 100 will get cancelled. Now R is equal to 300 minus 100 is equal to 200%. Now the next sum. If the simple interest on certain sum of money for 4 years at the rate of 2 as to 1 by 2% means 5 by 2% per annum is 100, then find the compounded interest at the same rate for the same period of time. Now see, simple interest amount is known to us, rate is known to us, time is known to us. We have to calculate the principal first. Now for the formula we use is simple interest is equal to P into R into T upon 100. Now how much simple interest? 100 in rupees we got. P for the time period is for the rate of 5 by 2% time period 4 years upon 100. So it becomes P is equal to 10,000 upon 5 by 2 2 4. So 10. 110 will get cancelled. So 1000 rupees is your principal amount. Now we got the value of principal. We know the rate of interest. We know the time period. We can calculate the compounded interest. So for compounded interest, you can directly calculate the compounded interest by using the formula as P into the bracket. Again one bracket 1 plus R upon 100 raised to T minus 1 bracket close. Now using this formula, putting all the values, you can find the compounded interest directly, or you can calculate the amount first, then after getting the amount subtract principal from the amount, and then you find the value of compounded interest. Now the next sum. Find a compounded interest on $4,000 at 5% annum if compounded half yearly for 1 by 2 years. Now see, half yearly is calculated, so we have to use that formula r by 2 raised to 2t. Okay, and here our t is 3 by 2. Principal is 4,000. Rate of interest is 5% per annum, so it becomes 5 by 2, because in the formula we use like this, A is equal to P into 1 plus R by 2, because half yearly it is calculated, divided by 100 raised to 2t. Okay, now putting the values, you put all the values and then you can solve. See how to solve it. Now put all the values. A is equal to P into the bracket 1 plus R by 2 upon 100 raised to 2t. Now principal is 4,000. 1 plus R by 2 means 5 by 2 means 2.5 upon 100 raised to 2 into 3 by 2. This 2 will get cancelled. So it becomes 4000 into the bracket 1 plus, now 2.5 divided by 100 gives us the 0.025 raised to 3. Now this is 4000 multiplied by 1.025 raised to 3. So 1.025 is equal to 1.0768 multiplied by 4000. So it is 4307.56. Now compound interest is equal to amount minus principal. Amount is 4307.56 minus 4000 gives us the value as 307.56 rupees as a compound interest. So this is the method to calculate the compounded interest. So your option is option D. Now the same thing you have to do for the next sum. Simple interest is calculated and you have to find the sum of the money. What will be the compound interest on sum of 1200 after 3 years at the rate of which sum increase up to 60% in 6 years at simple interest. Now see, sum increase 60% in 6 years mean 10% in 1 year, because simple interest is there. Every year 10% is increased. Okay, so rate of interest for 1 year become 10%. Now here you have an idea that everything. Now see, rate of interest we got by solving this puzzle, that 60% in 6 year at simple interest means 10% in 1 year. So rate of interest is 10%. Sum is given to you which is 1200. Okay, and time period is given to you which is 3 years. Now putting all the values you can find the compound interest. Okay, so to find out the compound interest you can use the formula directly, or you can find the amount first or then you solve. So compound interest is equal to principal into the bracket 1 plus r upon 100 raised to 3 minus 1 and then bracket close. Now here r is 10%, principal is known to you which is 12,000, time period is 3 years, and you can calculate the value of compounded interest. This 10 upon 100 become 0.1, and when it becomes 0.1 you have to do its cube. Okay, and then you can solve. So this is the method to solve the problem. Now simple interest on certain sum for 3 years at the rate of 8% per annum is half of the compound interest on 4000 for 2 years at the rate of 10% per annum. Find the sum of simple interest. Now see, simple interest on sum for 3 years at the rate of 8% is same as half of the compound interest on 4,000 for 2 years at the rate of 10% per annum, then the simple interest is asked. Now the formula is, for compound interest we know the principal. Okay, so compound interest principal is $4,000, time period is 2 years, rate of interest is 10%. Okay, so you can find the compound interest. So formula to calculate the compound interest is, compound interest is equal to 4,000 as a principal, P into the bracket 1 plus R upon 100 raised to T minus 1 bracket close, or you can say this as a P. Now 4,000 into the bracket 1 plus 10 upon 100 raised to 2 minus 1. Now multiply with 4,000 inside out. So it becomes 4,000 multiplied by 11 into 11 upon 100, because we have to do the square. 10 ones are 10, 10 plus 1 11, 11 upon 10 ka square means 11 into 11 into upon 100 minus 4,000. So 0 0 from both the side will get cancelled. 121 multiplied by 40 is equal to 121 multiplied by 40. So 4 ones are 4, 4 12 fours are 48. So it is 4840. 4840 minus 4,000 is equal to 840. Now the simple interest is half of the compound interest. So if compound interest is 840, simple interest is 840 divided by 2, which is 420 rupees. Now here we got the value of simple interest as a 420. Rate of interest we know, which is 10%. No, it is given as 8% and time period is 3 years. Rate of interest is 8%, time period is 3 years and principal is asked to you. Now use the formula for simple interest as P into R into T upon 100. Now here simple interest is 420 multiplied by 100 is equal to P into 8 into 3. So P is equal to 420 into 100 upon 24. So P is equal to 1750. So the principal on which 8% interest is applied for 3 years and the simple interest amount is 420 rupees is 1750. Option D. So from the compound interest we first calculate the formula. From the compound interest we calculate the compound interest first, because we know the principal, we know the time period, we know the rate of interest. Then we know that simple interest is half of the compound interest, so we calculated the simple interest from the compound interest, and then we find the principal for which the that much simple interest we get after 3 years at the rate of 8%. Find the compound interest on the sum at the same rate for the same time if the simple interest on certain sum of money for 3 years at the rate of 5% per annum is $75. Now here again, using simple interest ka formula, you have to first find the principal, because for simple interest we know the rate, we know the time, and we know the value of simple interest. So first we find the principal, and after getting principal, on that principal we calculate the compound interest by using this formula, P into the bracket 1 plus R upon 100 raised to T minus 1 bracket close. So this is step number 1 and this is step number 2, exactly reverse of question 8. In the question 8 we first calculated the compound interest, and after getting the compound interest we calculate the principal for simple interest. But here we calculate the simple interest formula use, and we find the principal, and after finding the principal we found the compound interest applied on that principal. Okay, or the sum. Now the next question is, Steve borrow certain sum from Peter for 2 years at the simple interest. Steve lent the same to Jennifer at the same rate for 2 years at compound interest. At the end of 2 years, Steve received $110 as a compound interest but paid $100 as a simple interest. Sum we have to calculate. Now see, we have to suppose the initial sum here be X and rate of interest be R. Then compound interest, how much he received, 110 rupees he received. Put all the values in the formula. This become your equation 1. And for simple interest also put all the values, simple interest amount, rate on the formula, and this becomes your equation 2. And then you have to substitute the values of equation 1 and 2, and you can find the rate of interest from those two equations. Okay, so here we will take a break. We'll stop here, and the next topic we will take in the next class.